If there's one word for AI development speed right now, it's just accelerating. I mean, it's incredible. And for you, the listener, you're navigating the space where the North American LLM market
Hmm.
predicted to hit, what, $105.5 billion by 2030, just staggering growth. But that speed, it creates a huge strategic challenge, just information overload. How do you possibly track which LLM is the right fit? Do you need that heavy-duty reasoning, maybe hyper efficiency, or specialized enterprise tools?
That is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. Our mission really is to give you a kind of strategic map. We want to cut through all that noise and just focus on the, let's say, top 9 LLMs really making waves right now, and crucially, explain their different strengths. Because the big takeaway here, honestly, is that the idea of one single LLM to rule them all, that's just obsolete now.
Absolutely. It feels like the market's fracturing into specialists. We're moving past just knowing names like GPT or Llama, right? And digging into what they're actually built to do best. So let's start with, I guess, the undisputed frontrunners, the proprietary models defining that cutting edge of reasoning power.
Yeah, we have to start with OpenAI and their latest flagship, GPT-5, the sources we looked at. They consistently describe it as, well, the most advanced system they've built so far, setting the benchmark for coding, math, general writing, the foundational stuff.
Okay, and what defines that cutting edge for them? I'm seeing a focus on like capability consolidation and structure. They've boosted multimodal things, vision, health inputs, but the big shift seems to be this dedicated reasoning model inside for the really complex problems.
That's right. It's designed to be that unified, all-in-one intelligence, and that new architectural focus on reasoning.
Yeah.
That's why the sources point to this big consolidation. Older models like GPT-4o, GPT-4, even 3.5, they're being deprecated. They're just less capable, more prone to reasoning errors compared to the new setup. Today's tasks demand that kind of deliberate architecture.
Right. Now, this sounds totally closed off, proprietary. You need a subscription. The training data is confidential. But I saw something interesting. OpenAI seems to be hedging a bit towards the open community with open weight releases. What does open weight actually mean for someone listening?
Yeah, that's a really key distinction. The core GPT-5,
Yeah.
proprietary, absolutely. But they have released these open weight models, GPTOS 120B and GPTOS 20B, Apache 2.0 license. Open weight basically means the architecture of the model weights the brain that's public. You can run it locally, but the training data, still confidential. It gives you really strong real-world performance, sometimes even on consumer hardware, and it's becoming crucial for people building like agentic workflows on their own systems.
Okay, got it. So shifting gears then. Anthropic's Claude 4 family, Opus 4, Sonnet 4. They also handle complex reasoning, but with a different angle. The sources call it the extended thinking mode.
Yeah, this is their big thing. It's like a formalization of self-reflection almost. Instead of just spitting out an answer, Claude is designed to go into these deliberate reasoning loops. It sort of refines its own thought process iteratively before it gives you the final output. It's basically trying to model how humans deliberate, which makes it really good for those complex multi-step problems where one mistake early on can mess up the whole thing.
And like OpenAI, they've got tiers, right? Opus 4 is the powerhouse for complex stuff, coding. Sonnet 4 is more for enterprise workloads, and actually, the sources mention it's reportedly a key part of GitHub Copilot.
That's what the report suggests, yeah. It's optimized for that kind of scale. And then there's Haiku 3, which is still their fastest model, built for real-time interactions where, latency really matters. And they've also expanded how they interact with the world. Beyond just text and images, they've introduced computer use, which means the model can actually navigate a computer screen, interact with websites, carry out multi-step tasks on its own. This is a big step towards true AI agents operating in existing software.
Interesting. Okay, next up, Grok from xAI. Its identity is obviously tied closely to the X platform, giving it that real-time info edge, and yeah, a reputation for being a bit witty.
Grok 4 and Grok 4 Heavy are their flagships. They're pushing benchmarks, especially on reasoning and native tool use. And crucially, the sources really emphasize that these models are fundamentally agentic. Now, we've used that word a few times, agentic. What does it mean?
Yeah, maybe give us a quick, simple example. What does agentic look like in practice?
Sure. So ask a standard model to write some code. It writes the code, stops. An agentic model, like Grok, could potentially take the request, write the code, then maybe autonomously set up a test environment, run tests, spot failures, and then revise the code or file a bug report itself. It handles the whole complex multi-step planned execution, not just the initial text generation part.
Okay, that's a vital distinction. And I see for developers listening, XAI has even specialized this with Grok Code Fast 1, a cost-effective model just for those agentic coding workflows.
Exactly. It shows they're really thinking about embedding these capabilities right into enterprise software development.
All right, so let's transition now. Moving from those proprietary giants defined by raw reasoning power to the open source heavy hitters. Here it seems like efficiency, scale, and cost are the big drivers. And we have to start with Meta's Llama family, where accessibility seems paramount.
Absolutely. Llama 4 Scout and Llama 4 Maverick are the big names there. Both are natively multimodal, so they handle images and text. And they're built on a specific architecture for efficiency, mixture of experts or MOE.
MOE. We hear that a lot. Maybe quickly explain what that actually is.
Yeah, it's a game changer, worth clarifying. So think of traditional LLMs as having one massive, dense brain. Every single part activates for every query. MOE is different. It's like having lots of specialized mini-brains, or experts. The model only activates the relevant experts for a specific task. This makes it way faster and much cheaper to run than a traditional dense model of a similar size. Huge efficiency gain.
And that technical efficiency is paired with just staggering scale, especially Llama 4 Scout. It features an industry-leading context window, up to 10 million tokens. That number's almost hard to comprehend.
It really is. To put that in perspective for you listening, that means Llama could potentially analyze, say, the entire history of a company's legal documents or years of customer service call transcripts, all in one go. For businesses dealing with vast amounts of their own data, that huge context depth is a massive advantage over proprietary models, which often charge a lot per token for large context windows.
So the strategic appeal of open source like Llama becomes pretty clear then. Businesses can run it on their own infrastructure. Total control over scaling, security, and importantly, long-term costs.
Precisely. And speaking of efficiency, let's look at Alibaba's Qwen series, the Qwen 3 models, also hybrid MOE models. Their key strength, according to the sources, is compute efficiency. They reportedly meet or even beat models like GPT-4o and DeepSeek V3 on most public benchmarks, but using far less compute.
Okay, hold on. If Qwen delivers similar performance with much lower overhead, why are businesses still paying the premium for something like GPT-5? What's the trade-off here?
That's a great question. It often comes down to things like the maturity of the ecosystem, the level of support, established enterprise relationships, the whole package. Qwen is a fantastic technical feat. It's open source Apache 2.0, super cost effective. But the big proprietary players offer that end-to-end integration, robust tooling, dedicated service agreements that appeals to global enterprises wanting minimal friction. But if your main focus is just squeezing the absolute maximum performance per dollar, Qwen is incredibly compelling. And they also have specialized versions, like Qwen 3 Coder and Qwen VL for Vision.
Got it. Okay, moving to DeepSeek, a Chinese AI company. We see another take on structured thought here. DeepSeek V3.1 is open source, MIT license, but its unique thing is this hybrid system. It switches between a thinking mode for complex stuff and a non-thinking mode for faster answers.
Yeah, it's kind of the open source answer to those dedicated reasoning architectures we saw in GPT-5 and Claude, like an internal gearbox, shifting based on the cognitive load of the task. They also have the DeepSeek R1 series, which is specifically aimed at really high-level problem solving. Think financial analysis, complex math, even automated theorem proving. Just pure intellectual heavy lifting.
And for actually deploying this stuff, they have the R1 Distill series. Smaller, efficient models derived from the big R1, right? Better for production where speed and cost matter.
Exactly. Streamlined for efficiency. Plus, the sources mention a strategic hardware shift they're making, moving towards Huawei AI chips. That's a significant move, likely to diversify away from relying too heavily on NVIDIA.
Right, let's shift gears again. Now looking at tools really designed with the enterprise environment in mind. Security, integration, specialized skills are the key selling points here. Let's start with Google's Gemini 2.5 series.
Okay, so this is Google's closed source ecosystem. And like the others at the top, their main model, 2.5 Pro, it features a deep think mode. Again, proving that detailed multi-step reasoning is table stakes now for high-end performance. The Pro model is apparently very capable in coding and those complex multimodal queries.
But Google gets that not every task needs that max power, right? They're pushing speed and cost, too, with models like Flash and Flashlight.
Exactly. For those latency-sensitive tasks, think Classification, translation, where you just need a quick, accurate answer without breaking the bank. It's a portfolio approach, so businesses don't overpay for compute they don't need.
What really stood out to me in the sources, especially for media or content folks listening, is Google's specific focus on visual and creative stuff. They mention an advanced image editing model, nicknamed Nano Banana, apparently, and their video generation model, VO3, is state of the art. They seem to be positioning Gemini not just as a general LLM, but as a real media creation powerhouse.
That's definitely a focus. And while Gemini itself is proprietary, it's always worth remembering the Gemma family exists. That's Google's dedicated open source line, built from the same research. It offers that flexible alternative for local deployment needs.
Okay. Next, Mistral AI, a major European player. Their strategy looks like a masterclass in segmentation, this diverse portfolio, mixing API-only access with strong open source options.
It really is diverse. Their API-only models target some very specific, high-value enterprise needs. DevStral Medium, for instance, is tailored for that agentic coding we talked about. But maybe the most interesting one is Magistral Medium. It's designed for complex reasoning, yes, but with transparent, verifiable logic. Think about highly regulated industries, finance, pharma. Transparency isn't a nice-to-have, it's essential. Knowing why the model decided something is often more critical than the decision itself.
That makes sense. And on the open source side, they're still championing efficiency with models like Mixtral 8x22b using MoE again, and these very specialized focus models like Mathstral 7b.
Precisely. You don't always need the giant, expensive, all-purpose model if all you need is, say, a specialist that's really good at mathematical proofs.
Right. Tool for the job. Okay, finally, Cohere. Laser focused on enterprise utility, it seems.
That's their whole game. Their flagship, Command A, has a large 256,000 token context window, similar scale to what we discussed with Llama, but really optimized for private enterprise deployment. And the hardware efficiency is pretty remarkable. The sources note it only needs 2 GPUs for a full private deployment.
Wow, just 2 GPUs. That's a massive cost saving for a company wanting to bring high-performance AI in-house securely. But their core tech focus is RG, right? Retrieval Augmented Generation. Let's quickly define RG and why it matters for business.
Okay, RH. It directly tackles the LLM hallucination problem, especially when you're dealing with your own company's specific facts and data. RG allows the model to first look up information in secure internal sources, company documents, databases, knowledge bases, and then cite its source when it generates a response. So the model's output is grounded in verifiable company reality, not just its general training.
And that security, that grounding, that's why Cohere is so critical for sensitive sectors like finance or healthcare, places that absolutely cannot risk data leaks or just making things up.
Exactly right. The whole focus is secure, on-premise deployment. Plus, Cohere is a leader in multilingual capabilities. Command A Translate supports 23 languages, which is obviously vital for big multinational corporations. #tag outro.
Okay, so bringing this all together, what does this landscape actually mean strategically? Looking across these 9 major players, it really doesn't feel like one big monolithic fight anymore. It seems to be clearly dividing into maybe 3 powerful specialized camps.
I think that's a great way to put it. You've got the proprietary powerhouses like GPT-5 and Claude. They're competing on building the most robust, structured reasoning systems. Who can think the best? Then you have the efficient open source innovators Llama, Quinn. They're pushing boundaries on scale like Llama 4 Scout, hitting that incredible 10 million token context and computational cost effectiveness using architectures like MoE.
And then that third camp, the specialized enterprise tools, like Cohere, like Mistral, targeting specific business efficiencies, whether that's the verifiable logic from Magistral Medium or that secure localized RAG implementation with Cohere's Command A. The complexity of modern business seems to demand these specialized tools now.
It really does. It's a market increasingly defined by specialization, yes, but also by speed and that structured thought process we kept seeing. But maybe here's a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Many of these next-gen models, Gemini Pro, Claude 4, DeepSeek V3.1, they're explicitly using an extended thinking or deep think mode. They're designed to iteratively refine and self-correct their answers before they even show them to us. So if you get used to AI that inherently visibly corrects its own internal mistakes, what impact does that fundamental shift towards, I don't know, algorithmic humility, and what impact does that have on how we ultimately trust and rely on these systems? Something to think about.